Tonight I'm joined by the man steering the country's fiscal policy, Minister for Finance, Neil Reckenbeck. Minister, thank you so much for affording us the opportunity to engage with you. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Mr. Kule. No, I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
Probably I should start by sending our condolences to you. I do recall that you lost your father recently. Minister, our condolences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kule. A sad time for my family, but that's the way life is, unfortunately.
Last month, Minister, His Majesty opened the ICC, a very big project, and when you delivered the budget, you announced the 600 million Malangeni for the completion of the ICC. Now, Eswatini have seen the ICC. Some are saying the money is not enough to complete the state of the art that you have seen. Are you going to increase the money?
No. So, in fact, to give you the full picture on the ICC budget, so the 600 million you're referring to is not the budget that's passed now. It's the budget from the previous year. So 25-26 budget had the 600 million. And the Eswatini are correct. It wasn't enough to finish the ICC. In fact, the ICC project was being delayed because of lack of resources and a few other problems. But what then happened was His Majesty, in his wisdom, I think he just was also seeing these delays also, and he just put a line in the sand. He said, already towards the end of the previous year, to say he's opening the ICC on the day of his birthday. And so it just put a huge challenge on the whole team to say, Nomakanjan, we need to finish this budget on that, finish the ICC on that day. And so it focused the mind. It meant the contractors, the ministries, the Ministry of Finance, everyone pulled together. We needed to provide another 905 million on top of the 600 million to get it finished. And so if you recall, I submitted a supplementary budget in Parliament. The supplementary budget, as I speak, is already passed Parliament with that 905 million in it. So in Bamba, it took 1.5 billion to finish the ICC to the quality that it did now, including with the budget and the supplementary budget. The year that we are in now, there's no money now for the ICC. It's now we're going to start focusing on the 5-star hotel to try and get that finished going forward.
Okay, I'll come back to that one, Minister. Probably I just want your thoughts. We've heard your colleagues, Minister for Tourism, applauding His Majesty for the ICC. And again, we are celebrating His Majesty's 40 years on the throne as Minister for Finance. How has it been like working with His Majesty?
No, when it comes to the very tough job that we have, this job as a Minister of Finance is really an unpleasant and a very tough job. But honestly, one pleasant side of it, one real pleasure is working with His Majesty. His Majesty, he's got the foresight, obviously because he's the king also, obviously got the foresight for his lifetime. He needs to plan for the country and for the generations on. So he takes a very long-term view on the whole economy. Unlike me, I'm going to take a 5-year, 10-year view on it, for the time that I'm a minister, and then I go home. And so for that reason, His Majesty, number one, brings a lot of that long-term thinking into the economy and into the system. So the ICC was definitely His Majesty's vision. And to be honest, while it's going, it feels like, this ICC is costing us lots of money and hey, it's tough getting finished. But now that it's finished, now everyone is celebrating tremendously because honestly, it's the best ICC or the most beautiful one on the continent, if not the world. I don't think there's something like this in the world to this level of, let's call it palace finish, which this ICC has. And now, yes, that cost money. It cost a lot of money, let's be honest about it. But it is there forever. And because it's the most beautiful, it's now going to attract, we believe, the most conferences and the most high-value conferences in the world. And hence, not only the ICC, the economic spin-offs, the hotel, the logistics, the tourism, all that space around it booms because of it. It's got a big multiplier effect. So no, His Majesty's vision and His Majesty's foresight is extremely impressive, and it's extremely impressive and humbling working with His Majesty, witnessing that.
Minister, I was following the debates after you have tabled the budget for the 2026-27 fiscal year, and there was so much intense debate in Parliament. Probably you can explain to us how much influence does Parliament have, probably in trying to change the proposed budget or forcing the Minister for Finance to go back and try to fix certain figures there.
Yeah, look, again, there's a debate of how much influence should Parliament have on the budget. In fact, the law puts it more is that they shouldn't be changing. They're not allowed to increase the budget, so they shan't say, well, you know what, Minister, you asked for 32 billion budget, we're saying it must be 34 billion. They're not allowed to do that according to the law. But at the same time, they shouldn't be moving money between heads and increasing heads. They can reduce the budget, leave it the same. But at the same time, let's keep in mind, they need to approve the budget. And so across the world, parliaments, the tactic that they use is, just like you see in America. In America, you see sometimes, there's no budget. Why? Because it hasn't passed Parliament, or Senate or lower house hasn't passed the budget yet. And all they do is they just say, we're not passing it until you do A, B, C, D, E. And when you've done these things, bring it back, and then we'll pass the budget. So even though we do have these things to say they shouldn't do A, B, C in Parliament, but because they have the overall approval, they have to approve the budget. They do have a strong handle and a strong say in what the budget, in what they would really like to see in the budget. There's no carte blanche. It's not a thing of they can do what they want to do. But as we've seen before, they'll say, no, they must change the budget here. Then we have to go back to cabinet, change it, bring it back, or else we then have a debate or you have a locked situation. But the bottom line is they have a strong say. Cabinet must prepare the budget, and they must scrutinize the budget and hold our feet to fire on the budget. If they are the ones now crafting the budget, it's also wrong, because now who they're going to hold accountable? They must now hold themselves accountable because they have crafted the budget. So again, it's this fine balance, but the bottom line is cabinet must prepare the budget and they must approve it and then keep us accountable is the best system and the way it should go, and influence it along the way.
I understand Parliament's oversight role, and there's also the portfolio committee responsible for the Minister of Finance. Now, members of Parliament, they represent the masses of our people. They might not be economics, they might not be finance people, but how does then your ministry in particular, or government, ensures that Parliament has the time and resources to scrutinize the budget?
Look, I think first of all, the law understands that it needs heavy scrutiny by Parliament, and you'll even find there's an additional provision in the PFM Act that says that before I even table the budget in Parliament, once Cabinet has finished with it, I must table it to the Finance Portfolio Committee to make sure that the finance arm of parliamentarians, the ones that have been elected by Parliament to represent them from a financial perspective, have a deep understanding of the budget. And this year we spent 5 days with the portfolio, and they took the budget apart and to understand every element of it. So by the time you actually get to do the budget speech and you pass it in the House, which does sometimes feel a bit rushed because we've only got a month to do it in, but you must understand that because of that prior deep understanding of it, Parliament does have a deep understanding of what's in the budget, and I believe enough knowledge and insight to make credible decisions.
Your first budget speech, if I recall very well, was in 2019. Now we are in 2026, you are still the Minister for Finance. What has been the most challenging thing you have ever faced, or the most challenging year for you as Minister for Finance?
Well, I suppose the most challenging year would have been that same 2018, 2019 when I came in. I mean, when I came into my job, I was straight away told, Minister, there's no money for salaries. You can imagine the stress. You're not going to pay civil servants. And so we scrambled and we collected something. And at that stage, the central bank, under Majosi, really came to the rescue. They opened up additional loan or an advance we could take from central bank to help stress it. There were a few elements, but we de-stressed it at that point. 6 billion in arrears. It was very tough when I came in. But the toughest thing being a minister throughout the part is definitely still arrears. So unfortunately, this thing of arrears, we thought last year we had now settled the arrears once and for all. Unfortunately, then came the supplementary budget with extra needs, and we back to square one. So again, this year, going to go to the market, loan money again to settle this the supplementary budget. But unfortunately, when we do have supplementary budgets, there's not necessarily the money for it. It just means that you need to do it, and now there's now arrears or suppliers not paid that builds up in the background when that happens. And so even though we thought we had tackled it once and for all last year, we are back there where we are now, and we'll try and close it again this year, and then try and not go over the budget.
Mbukeli nasansavulela umsakazo wakho ngumsakazo wethithombe Eswatini TV sehlelweni ihlelo Asakhe Kwetfu sinenduna itemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reckenberg sitaka nje indzaba budget njengoba sibonile eParliament itekwe kabanti indzaba yemaphakelo le yawethula ke induna. Minister, since 2018, yeah, do you think we need to have some reforms? I just want your personal opinion on this one. Do you think we need to have some reforms in terms of the role, the oversight role of Parliament when it comes to the issues of the budget?
Yeah, when it comes to oversight role, I think the oversight is very good. Number one, so the oversight role of Parliament, not necessarily during the budget process, but throughout the year with PAC. So PAC does have heavy scrutiny on how the budget was spent, where there are pipes lying, the newspapers is always full of what the PAC is doing. And that process is a brilliant process that actually keeps government's feet to fire. Now, yes, ministers don't appear before PAC, but the truth is it's not ministers that are controlling officers. The PSs are controlling officers. They are the ones actually doing the spending. And so to really make sure that the spend is done properly, PSs, their feet are kept to fire through PAC. And I think the checks and balances are there for a good system to operate well.
How did we ensure as the ministry that government ministries or departments, they use what they are allocated to the teeth?
So you see the budget process, number one, captures exactly where each cent is going to be spent. Now when it comes to the budget being released is where those controls are. So you don't release, if the budget says you've got 1 million for travel, you spend 1 million for travel, that's it, money's finished. Either you can maybe reallocate if there's some critical need, which we control, but what we've now brought in is IFMIS. So IFMIS is a game changer on the controls in the budget. And so now going forward, from this year going forward, the controls are heavily enhanced, as well as manipulating the budget is not possible, as well as making sure people process quickly is now scrutinized in this. It's a very transparent system, and it's all online. So it means that if there's no more papers moving office to office to office, and it can sit there for a month before you look at the papers. Now the system is going to say to you, hey, 2 days ago those were sitting here. After 2 days, it starts sending an orange light. After the 3rd day, it tells your boss you haven't done your work. After the 4th day, the minister, it really keeps us all in check to make sure that the system flows and the budget process actually is fluid. And I really believe IFMIS is going to be an absolute game changer in not only Ministry of Finance, in the government holistically.
Bokusinhletile induna itemafa Neil Reckenberg njoba ngiyathi lenzaba ngifuna kuyiteka nje nenduna nyalo kanifishane ngakayimakethe indzaba le iteka ko nenduna yathi 70 Tembuso Minister for Public Service Mabulala Maseko because the man with the purse is with me, so I should as well go ahead and ask you about notching. What is going on there, Minister? The civil service are waiting for the notching exercise.
The notching exercise. Okay, so suppose, I mean, look, as you say, it's the Minister of Public Service that is the main responsible minister here. I'm just looking at the money, and I think
And how is your purse looking like?
No, we don't have resources available for anything extra this year. Unfortunately, this year we've had to budget 800 million for the 85% of the back pay of last year's salary review, and because of that 800 million, it has meant that this year's budget, because not only there's the 800 million and then there's the whole salary review. So it's 1.6 billion for the salary review exercise plus 800 million for the back pay we've had to budget for this year. It is extremely tight. There was nothing left for any other increases. And I think, as I've mentioned before, we would have loved to increase things like elderly grants. Those things that is just critical to increase. We couldn't even afford that, mainly because of that salary review exercise. And all I'm saying to civil servants is please understand that the budgeting pressure is massive at the moment, and just getting the money for the back pay is going to be a huge challenge, and it comes from tax. So it means that our system is a loop system. If we are now going to cause issues that are going to disrupt the economy, it means that the tax doesn't come out of the economy. It means the money is not available in the first place. It means we're going to have a problem to even pay certain things in government, including back pay. So what I'm just saying to everyone, please keep calm. Let us look at it. Let us see what we can do. Whether it's what the contract said, how, I don't know about all that. All I'm saying is, from a financial perspective, we really can't afford more this year. Next year is another story. But But this year, it is extremely tight. And if we have any disruption in the economy, it's going to create pain for everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean the country citizens, taxpayers, as well as us civil servants.
Ngiyakhumbula ukuthi 1997 yachaza leyo ukuthi indzaba lebaqhubekako nekuyiteka netinhlangano letimeleleke tona tisebenzi tembuso akusebenzi indzaba lesenini sevele nje iceseka kusakhulunywa ngayo ngokulesi bahlola emarket nasibuya sitaqhubeka nayo induna yetemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reckenberg siteke ndzaba letinye letiphathelene nawo nje umnotho welive laseSwatini.
You could win a car. You could win a car. You could win a car. Everyone could win a car.
That's right. When you buy 900-gram Bacoma Wheat Bix for $52.99, save 12 Emalangeni. 5 Roses Tagless Tea Bags, 100s for $54.99, save 15 Emalangeni. 1 liter liquid fruit, buy any 2 for $59, save 17 Emalangeni.
Shop, swipe, and win. It could be you.
Polisi qhubeka nehlelo Asakhe Kwetfu lethelwa ngumsakazo Tithombe Eswatini TV elangena lo mhla siletini enduna yetemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reckenberg. Minister, I do understand that there are other cabinet colleagues of yours who are responsible for the different sectors in our economy. But as the man with the purse, probably you can help the nation understand how do you prioritize? Perhaps that's how I should pose the question. How do you prioritize this government? Because when you talk about the elderly grants, Eswatini is saying that's a priority. These senior citizens are looking after their grandchildren at home. If you are going to give them 600 Temalangeni, it's too little. They are a priority. But seemingly you are saying you don't have the fiscus to try and increase their grants. How then do you prioritize?
I think let me start off from this point, is to say we need to understand we don't have enough money for anything. So what I'm saying is we are short for all the elements of budget. So as you were saying on notching earlier, we are short, we don't have money for notching. We don't have money to be able to increase, we don't have enough money for roads, we don't have enough money for schools, we don't have money for health. So all the elements, there is a shortage of funding. We, as most countries in the world, we have to prioritize with a little bit that we have. We need to see where's the highest priority. Now, how does the process work to make sure we're trying to get that balance right? What we do is we have PBC. PBC is made up of 3 ministries. The 3 ministries that are the most responsible for budget expenditure: the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Economic Planning, and the Ministry of Public Service. So we get together, we formulate the budget framework. Once we've done that, we then inform the ministries what the ceilings are in the budget framework. The ministries then come and present to PBC to say, this is important, that's important, this is critical, that's critical. Even it's over the ceilings, no problem, they can present it over the ceiling, because if they have critical things that they know, we don't know, they must present them. We then take that and we then, amongst ourselves, as the bigger PBC team, understanding there's many economists there, there's financial people there, we then look to see what we feel as the highest priority, and we then formulate the budget based on what our opinion is of where the highest priorities are, keeping in mind something like, let's use the elderly grants. It's a sensitive one, but I suppose let me go there. And that is that we must understand that if, as an economy, we have 2 big problems. We have a big problem with poverty, and we have a big problem with unemployment. Worse than our elderly grants problem are these 2 problems. The moment you are having above 30% of people unemployed, above 50% of youth unemployed, the knock-on effects of that are much worse than an increase in elderly grants. So just to put things in perspective, we are trying, because if you can deal with unemployment, you will naturally deal with poverty. So our main focus is to try to deal with unemployment. That's a massive priority that we have in this PBC group. So we try and do the best we can to make sure that the economy can grow, because a growing economy equals not only jobs, it also means better jobs. It means there are options for something. At the moment in Eswatini, if you have a job somewhere, you hold on to it so tight, but it's actually not, it's actually right for you to have the flexibility to say, no, hold on, I'd like to work here, or actually that's a better option, I feel I'd rather be something else. In Eswatini, you can't do that because there's so few jobs, everyone clings onto them, which you understand. So we need to get more jobs in the system. And the moment you have more flexibility in job space, poverty gets sorted out by itself. So there's a strong focus on fixing the unemployment problem. And hence you'll see money going towards factory shelves, going towards roads, going towards, because you set us off a road, A tarred road creates a huge amount of economic activity along the road. You will notice everywhere where there's a tarred road in Eswatini, and there's Eswatini nation land there, the development that takes place is massive along the tarred roads. So you might think, oh, a tarred road is only infrastructure. It's not. It's heavy economic development, and it's huge economic employment driver. And so that's the main focus when it comes to budget formulation. And so when we formulate the budget, we do this. After we've done that, it now goes to cabinet. Cabinet scrutinizes it, rips it apart, puts it back together to make sure that the priorities are right. And now, as a Minister of Agriculture, you are arm wrestling to make sure that you have your portion, but at the same time, Minister of Foreign Affairs is a minister, and all the ministers are re-lobbying. And so you get a very good feel when the ministers are lobbying where Mbamba the real priority is. And so in cabinet is really where those priorities get settled, and we then finalize the budget in cabinet. From there, then, it then goes to Parliament, and it goes to Senate, and goes to His Majesty, and it goes through the process. So I believe that as much as, I need to be honest, there's too little everywhere. But at the same time, I do believe amongst the limited resources, I think we're getting the balance as best we can possible.
We don't live in an island, and I know that we have engagements with your colleagues from the region in Africa, probably in the world. How then do you compare our budget processes with the region, probably in Africa?
We have, in 2017, we passed a very, let's call it cutting edge, world-class legislation called the PFM Act. The PFM Act is specifically how budget processes and how the finances of the country must be managed. And so, lucky for me, the year before I became a minister, this law was passed. And so actually, the truth is, many countries don't have a PFM yet. They still got older legislation. But a PFM is regarded as the best of the best when it comes to legislation around how to budget and how the budget process should work. So no, we are there at the moment. Our legislation is very good, and we have in our budget process now something like IFMIS, making it automating it is really going to now, I think, put us in a very good footing. And so I'm really focusing before my term ends, because even though IFMIS has now started, there are a lot of modules that must still take place. And one of my biggest goals as a minister is to make sure by the time I leave, IFMIS is fully embedded and IFMIS is running well. And it'll only be done right towards the end. The last modules will be done towards the end of my term. And I really hope to leave the Ministry of Finance with IFMIS embedded properly, as it's an absolute game changer for our country.
Bukelesi sehlelo lihlelo Asakhe Kwetfu sinenduna itemafa umthonisha ni Reckenberg sitaka nyenza ba pasele na ntenza bathi imali kulo live la Eswatini. The other day I'm going off script. The other day I heard the Minister for Justice, Prince Simelane, was saying to deal with corruption in this country we need something like the Madlanga Commission that they are having in South Africa. And I remember in 2023 at Eswatini you gave us an analogy. You said the corruption in this country, the corrupt culprits, let me call them that, now they no longer eat just these small boxes. They are now eating the bigger boxes. We were saying it's a big problem. How is it now?
So at that point at Sibaya, I wasn't a minister of anything. I was just a normal Eswatini. But no, I still feel the same as that time. And that is that, and even now, I do believe we have we do have issues when it comes to corruption in government, and I believe those issues are in certain areas. I really don't believe across government we have corruption. We have certain areas where corruption is thriving, and certain areas where it's not. And so not to say that there can't be someone, but when you see a government like Treasury, like you've seen in PEU, like you've seen in ERS recently, where they're firing people for corruption, you know that there's health actually in those entities because they are catching someone and they are firing someone for corruption. When you're seeing that, you know that, and so I'm proud as a minister that many of my departments have recently fired people for corruption because it means that there's actually health and corruption is not the norm. Where you don't see people getting fired and everything is just going according to the flow, it's normally there's a sign that there's a problem because you're not rooting out the corruption. But when it comes to the Ministry of Health, I really believe that what will transform the ministry, at the moment they still don't have a system that controls medicines from central medical stores all the way through to the bottom. The legislation has been passed for a standalone central medical stores, and it means that now the stores is going to be responsible for buying the medicines as well as distributing them and all the way through until we prove whose hand has it landed in. is the controls. And when it's landed in a person's hand, does government then pay for the medicines to the central medical store? So I believe now we've got a system in place that will be able to prevent even the possible corruption or the alleged corruption at the Ministry of Health. This new system should really be able to put that to bed once and for all.
I remember Senate asking you, the Minister for Finance, to really look at our borrowing as a kingdom. So many loan bills we have tabled in Parliament. Are our debt levels sustainable?
So we, as a country, I think as I might have mentioned to Senate, let's start from one side. Number one, there'll always be loan bills. And so as loans are being repaid, you are taking on new loans. As loans are being settled, you take on. So there'll be always a constant rolling of loan bills coming through Parliament. The fact that there are loan bills shouldn't be an indication to say, oh, we are taking on more debt. Sometimes you're just replacing debt that you are repaying. I'm not there telling them every day how much I've repaid, but every year we're settling certain loans, we're paying loans, we're constantly paying off loans. So what I'm saying is that the amount of loan bills shouldn't be the problem. The problem must be the quantum of debt. Again, the quantum of debt is not the issue, because if your GDP is growing. So as your GDP grows, your debt can also grow. It means that you can, because as your GDP grows, your taxation grows. As your taxation grows, you can afford to pay off more debt. So the number to watch is what you call the debt to GDP ratio. Yes. So at the moment on the continent, the average on the continent is 66% debt to GDP ratio, which means some countries are 80, 90, 100%, and some countries are 30, 40, 50%. Us as a country, we're currently around, I think at the moment we're around 44% debt to GDP ratio. So we've been trying to keep it over the last few years below 45%. I think in 2022, we touched on 45%. 2023, we came back down again. We've done this year, we're going 44, so we're going to touch on it again possibly. But we're trying to maintain it below 45% debt to GDP ratio, meaning that you are very much on a sustainable path. So at the moment, last year, we took a bit more debt on because we settled arrears once and for all, as well as we had certain loans to pay. This year, again, now with the supplementary budget, as we spoke on earlier, with the ICC finishing and strategic oil starting, a few things push the supplementary budget up. Again, that's going to push our numbers up slightly, but we're still maintaining that 45% goal to try and remain 45% debt to GDP ratio. Meaning that in the year that we are in, we're paying almost 4 billion emalangeni just in interest. So just the interest repayment the year that we are in is about 4 billion. Now imagine if we had imagine we had 80% debt to GDP, it means we were paying 8 billion in interest. I'm not talking of settling debt, I'm talking of the interest on debt. And so we need to be very careful as a country, because sometimes you have people saying, no, we should just have, other countries have 100% debt to GDP ratios. It's very dangerous to go too much higher because of the fact that the interest becomes high. Some countries at the moment, for the first year ever, our interest cost has overtaken our spend on health. Never before have we had that. We've always had our health spend being higher than interest spend. For the first year now, interest has overtaken the health spend. Some countries, if you add the health spend and the education spend, the interest payment is even higher than both of those. So we're still far from there, but we need to be careful as a country, and hence we're trying to be conservative with the loans that we take. We're trying to maintain the 45% debt to GDP ratio, but where we are is very much healthy space, and we are on a sustainable path as we speak.
But do we borrow to finance projects that will address the unemployment we are talking about, or we borrow to pay civil servants?
So we need to understand that every year, let's put it this way, our capital expenditure, let's talk of the year that we come from, was 7.3 billion emalangeni. Our total loans that we took additional that year was 3 billion. So whether the actual money coming in is spent on whatever is not the big story. You must just make sure that your capital expenditure is at least double of what your consumption is on loans. And so because sometimes you're taking the cash and you're spending cash on road building, because a lot of our capital expenditure comes from our cash resources, not from other loans. And so if you add loans for projects as well as loans for budget, together, those must not exceed capital expenditure, meaning that 100% of the loans is going for growing the economy. That's what we need to keep in mind. And again, this year, if you look at our capital expenditure, you look at the loans for capital expenditure as well as loans for funding budget, together, they are still below our capital expenditure. So in that sense, it's healthy, if I can put it that way.
Hosi induna hitema fangumtonisha ni Reichenberg. Stika jelenza banjo ba parliament yafika induna ithuleke imithetho lecela ukuthi inikwe imvume yokuboleka imali ngaba ku World Bank nakubo African Development Bank kutawesekela ke imisebenzi letsite kule live la ngani buto lomkhulu ukuthi ngabe live liyakhona ukuthi ibhadale leyo mali yachaza ke induna ukuthi cha kwanyalo we are cruising very nicely. Sehlelweni bongo sihlelo Asakhe Kwetfu. Minister, I'm just reminded by a certain teacher who is on contract. This teacher heard you saying we have no money for anything. They're asking the Minister for Public Service to probably, okay, I'll ask this one. I'm told my producer wants me to take a break. Bengifuna ngene endzabeni yabo tshela bongo si contract teachers lebasi hulumende phela abaqashe babe sale baba permanent. Indzaba ke induna ithi itele mali. Ngifuna ke lokuthiwa lo sikuteli lokungentiwa kuze kusilabo tshela bangaka bagcine bakhona nabo ukuthi bangayibhanga bayocela ukuthi libhange libasite ngokuthuthukisa impilo tabo ngoba they are permanent government employees. Sekumakethe bongosi itabuya induna isiphendule lapho.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Bukele asikwemukele nasanza kusivelela hlelo Asakhe Kwetfu sinenduna intemafa umthonisha ni Recordback. Minister, before I went on break, I was saying there are so many contract teachers and their plea to government is to absorb them permanently. And we are saying the PES doesn't allow that. But is there anything you can do for them so that government can probably employ them on permanent basis? What can be done?
Look, what we must keep in mind when it comes to our teachers, which we highly value and we desperately need them, and really there's no, I'm not attacking anybody here. But what we need to keep in mind, and that is that we need to look at the amount of teachers that we have in a country. At the moment, in Africa, many countries you'll find, if you look at what you call the teacher-child ratio in schools, in primary schools in Africa, it's around 40 children per teacher ratio. What the UN, what the criteria are, the best practice is around 25. They say best practice is 1 teacher to 25 pupils is what the recommendation is for the continent. In Eswatini, if you look at the amount of teachers versus pupils, you'll find in primary schools, it's 1 teacher to 22 pupils. And I'm just talking the broad numbers now. You might find there's here and there difference, but more or less 1 teacher to 22 pupils. In high schools, 1 teacher to 18 pupils. So my argument has always been, and that is that theoretically, we should have a bit less teachers. And so, but at the same time, we understand as government, there's a huge outcry because there are so many teachers sitting at home. So the question shouldn't be, let's make all the temporary teachers permanent teachers. The question should be is, would you rather have the temporary teacher sitting at home, or would you rather have a temporary teacher actually at a school earning something in the meantime while we are waiting for permanent roles to open up? I think one must change the mindset on that, because I know once one comes in as a teacher, oh, I'm now a teacher, I've maybe been here for a period of time, I should now become permanent. I hear that argument, and it's a good argument. But at the same time, as government, we would rather help more teachers on a temporary role than to make everyone permanent, but actually have a whole lot less teachers in the system. So I believe, again, there's no perfect science, and I'm not saying it's fair exactly how it's working out. All I'm saying is I would rather have more teachers, but have you know, more on a casual basis. So at least I've got something to take home every month than to have them sitting at home. Is really what I'm saying in Mao.
Let's talk about the issue of suppliers, Minister. The government departments and ministries, of course, I know. Who are these culprits who, when we come to you and say we owe suppliers delayed payments, what really is the problem there?
No, look, to be totally honest, sometimes we have got a shortage of cash. It's just a matter of our cash flow is not good. As we sit now, our cash flow is very tight again, as we sit here now. At the same time, a normal healthy, so every month you get about 600-700 millions emalangeni of payments you must make to suppliers into treasury. Again, in the beginning of the year it's slow, towards the end of the year it spikes, it gets to maybe 1.2 billion that comes in. In the beginning of the year maybe 500 million, but it's about 700-800 million. So at the same time, if you're paying 30 days, you're going to have a stock of 600 million of suppliers waiting for payment because there's a 30-day term normally that we have with suppliers. Even though suppliers are used to now getting money on 60 days, 90 days. Across the world, it's more or less the norm to wait a bit longer for government payments. But I think what we have is we find ourselves often in a cash flow constraint, and so which is probably the main problem. So you find that at the moment at Treasury there will be I think about $500 million of suppliers waiting for payment. So every week money comes from tax. We pay what we can. We pay the oldest ones quickly and try and get them off the list. But there's a stock of suppliers waiting for payment at Treasury. At the same time, you find in ministries there's paperwork delays, and so that someone has supplied toilet paper to a ministry. They've got an order, and now they sent the invoice, and now the invoice is taking its time. There's allegations sometimes they say, no, if they want your things done faster, you must pay someone to get it. I've always said to people, bring the proof. If someone is telling you to pay for processing of paperwork, I mean, in today's world of having a cell phone, it's so easy to catch someone committing corruption. Please don't say to us, someone's been bribing me or there's corruption. Bring us the proof of the corruption. It's so easy to record someone when they're saying, hey, you must give me something first before I process your paperwork. So I'm not sure how big a problem it is, but I hear there's a problem with processing of the paperwork in ministries. And the beauty is when IFMAS comes in, it's going to solve that. There's nowhere to hide. If you've supplied toilet paper, you have an order, and your invoice is in, it's in the system, and it now has to go through the system transparently to get to Treasury. So again, this year, we're going to raise money again to try and fix our cash flow, and we'll hope that once and for all. So with our cash flow fixed and IFMAS in place, we're going to try. I know I keep on saying this, but it is really, we are trying our best to try and get out of being behind on payments. It is an ambition of ours to fix. And we believe this year, we are hoping again. I know I said this last year and raised the money, but unfortunately supplementary budget pushed us back into the hole again. And so we believe now this year we're going to raise money for the supplementary budget, and with IFMAS, we are hoping that we can fix this problem.
Minister, I know that you follow the news, especially what is happening with other ministries. I always hear you talking about the country's credit rating. There's this gambling issue, it's still in court. I'm not going to get into details. This matter is now sub judice. But I heard that Interpol is interested in this matter. Does it affect our credit ratings? Because probably, does it give us a bad name to the international organizations we are working with in the financial space? What can it affect us?
Look, I think what we must understand is we only start having problems when this kind of activity thrives in your country. So if we must, the fact that we have caught these criminals soon after they started is proving how good we are in making sure that this crime does not thrive in our country. So what I'm saying is any Interpols or grey listings or rating agencies that are going to accuse us to say, oh, it's happening in your country, it's a wrong accusation. It can start in anyone's country. The question is, how quickly are you dealing with it if it starts in your country? And Eswatini, we were brilliant. It started, we found it out, we nipped it in the butt, and we've stopped it. So for me, we've done extremely well as a country. And I think the rating agencies should recognize and say, wow, Eswatini, well done, and push the rating up, not down, is my view.
Induna itemafa bongo singiteka nje lendzaba ngoba vele indzaba mlonyeni nawuvula nemsakato yangephandle indzaba lofika uyikhanze bayiteka ku Eswatini kunje kepha kabe sesiyeva lo ukuthi nala amanye amave emhlaba njengoba iteka nje indzaba yabo grey listing, so isibeka kabi probably nasibukwa hadi inhlangano yotaka mhlaba induna itemafa mthonjwa ni record minister. Before I close, it's 2026 now, 2018 when you took over the reins as Minister for Finance. If there is that one particular thing in our financial space that you want to change, what will it be?
Hey, it is growth. Like I touched on earlier, the one thing that I wake up for every day to try and have an impact on is to try and get our economy to grow. When our economy grows, when the tide lifts, when the tide comes in, all the boats lift. And economic growth is that thing. When the economy grows, it lifts the amount of tax we can make, it lifts the amount of debt we can take, it lifts the amount of employment you can create. It just fixes so many problems. It fixes the amount of teachers you can employ, and the fact that you can now notch, and the fact that you can do all these things. Without growth, you're staying right there, the economy is growing, there's inflation, and the country is going backwards. And at the same time, if you're just growing at inflation, if we're growing around 3%, it means you're actually staying where you are. The fact that we are now growing around 5%, to me, is an absolute wonderful thing to take place. We must now maintain the 5% and continue to increase the 5% to make sure if we can get to a double-digit growth like we're dreaming about, it would solve our problems in Eswatini very quickly. So that's the main goal. The fact that we're at 5% is a lovely place to be. We would have wished for more, but it's better than where we come from. And so that's what gives me a certain amount of joy.
During the speech from the throne, His Majesty called upon government to look for other sources of revenues outside tax. Are there any alternatives you are currently looking at?
Look, I think one must understand, and that is that something, let's just say the ICC. We've built the ICC. So now the revenues are going to come from conferencing in the country. So it means that there's a lot we can do to get more income in the country. But ultimately, from that income that comes in the country, how does the money come into government's hands? It is often through taxation. And so even though we can look at many different ways of getting money in, it's through taxation. But a way, obviously, natural resources. Many countries, they have natural resources and they charge royalties on natural resources. That's another way to try and bring money in. And so yes, I think we need to get creative and to try and find as many possible ways to try to increase our resources. You'll see the mining industry is growing in Eswatini. There's more and more taking place. The anthracite, unfortunately, the market was hit a bit, but I think as things are opening up now, you're seeing what's happening with the ferrochrome industry in South Africa. Eskom has settled the price with them. It looks like they'll be opening up and that market should go again, meaning our mining gets a nice boost. And so, no, I believe we're on the right track to be able to diversify funding streams coming in.
I also want to understand, Minister, I heard somewhere that you are looking at the energy drinks that may attract syntax. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Shame. The media called me yesterday to say, Minister, are you considering this? And I said, no, funny enough, we are considering it. I'm not a big supporter for sugar tax. And that is for the reason that sugar is our largest industry in Eswatini, is the sugar industry. And it provides probably our largest amount of taxation already comes from that sugar industry. So the moment you're now saying, oh, sugar's bad for you, I'm going to tax sugar, it means that it's a bit of a vote of no confidence on your own major economy. It's kind of you saying, well, I'm producing sugar, but I'm saying it's bad and I'm saying I must tax it. So for that reason, a little bit, you put yourself in a bit of a juxtaposition to say that we should really tax sugar. But when it comes to energy drinks, whatever's unhealthy for you, and if there was a way to tax sugar, to tax the excess use of sugar, now we need to find a way to do that. And that's maybe where sugar drinks, because by eating a sweet, it's not going to kill you. But by drinking sugary drinks, they are saying that's bad for you. But now these energy drinks, they are saying also has got a similar, is also, I think the health experts are saying this is another that we should tax. So we're considering these taxes at the moment, and we'll see what we do around them.
While government employees are talking about notching, there are employees from parastatals. They are talking about salary review. Are you looking into that?
We are, and so we have decided as Cabinet to actually halt all the salary reviews that are being looked at within parastatals and to do one major one across the divisions, because we are finding that in the parastatals, some are earning high salaries and some are earning very low salaries. So we are wanting to do a process where we do a harmonization process across the parastatals. And it was the Prime Minister actually that recommended that. He obviously comes from the parastatals. He has got a deeper understanding of the operations, and he was saying that we're constantly doing these reviews only for the ones that are high performing. Whereas unfortunately the low performing ones, they're going to continue performing low if you don't ever look at their salaries, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And he was correct. And so we are doing a harmonization process now, a salary review, but mainly for harmonization processes. And it's just about a kickstart.
All right. I have an interest on that one. I'm declaring my interest. Bongosinduna itemafa ngumhlonishwa Neil Rakenberg. Ngithemba ukuthi baningi lesinale interest kulenza bale iteka ko indvuna yalama parastatals. Ngilabathola ukuthi market bongosi nangibuya ngidawule phetha hlelo nendvuna itemafa.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sende ukukhicita lokusembili.
Because siyalephetha ke hlelo lalomuhla nenduna yetemafa umhlonishwa Neil Rackenberg. Minister, before we leave, I'm being told to ask you this question by one of our viewers here. When I want to take it verbatim, when is the process going to start? Can the minister give us dates regarding the process you are doing for parastatals?
So to give an idea of the process, we have already identified the consultant to do the work. And it took a long time to do that because we had a failed tender, and then the tender came through. We had one or two entities that came through, but we actually did need one because it's not only reviews, it's harmonization. So we ended up identifying one that'll be able to do the whole job for us. The MOU is now being finalized. So even though we have identified the person, it's been through tender board, we are finalizing the MOU that government signs them. So the moment the MOU is signed, it'll be at cabinet within the next few weeks. The moment that is signed, the process will start. And we are hoping the process will take about 6 months maximum to do, and after that we're talking of finding a way to implement it.
We are now at the twilight of your career as a cabinet minister. How has been your political journey?
No, look, I'm not gonna lie about it. It's tough being a politician. You know, on the outside, one looks at government and you think, oh, government, you know, if you just do this simple thing and do that simple thing, you know, I mean, you can fix this government. You can do it. Come and try and do it. It's a whole different story. Because if you want to, you know, if you're a CEO of a company, you make a decision. 2 weeks later, it's implemented. But you've made the decision. Everyone has to do what you tell them to do. In government, even though you think, oh, I'm the minister, I've got a strong voice. If you want to change something, it has to start lepans. You must then craft something and craft the legislative. It must go through all the stakeholder consultations. It must come through. It must be passed through. Then it must come to minister's level, go to the AG's office. It must go to cabinet, go to parliament. It takes years to be able to make changes in government. And so for that reason, it is just, you know, coming from the private sector, you've got speed coming now, and it's like, it feels like you've got a ball and chains tied around your legs and your arms as you're trying to work. That element is tough and it is difficult. So it's almost the political side of the job that is difficult to do. But at the same time, you know, obviously the fact that I've now been here for a while means you get to understand it better and better and better, and you get to work as quick as you can within the system. And so I do believe within my 10-year term, if I do finish my 10-year term, that one will have done many of the things that I would have liked to have seen done from the beginning. But it for sure would have taken me a lot longer than what I expected when I came in.
We are from a constituency, of course, Minister. After this tenure, the people from your constituency, if they can ask you to represent them in Parliament, are you interested?
No, I won't be running for Parliament as a member of Parliament, and so I'll be quite happy to go home and go and rest and to see what the Lord will put on my plate to do next. Luckily for me, I come from Montigny. Luckily for me, the company has been doing very well since I've been away, and I really thank God for that, because you know, when you become a minister, really, you're so focused on this job, there's no time to think you're going to look over your shoulder and see what's going on at the company. The team there is, by God's grace, really done a better job than I was doing, going back to Montigny. So I'm sure the Lord will open something for me to do when I'm done.
I hope one day you'll give me an opportunity to talk to you about Montigny. I've got some questions to ask you. So the reason why I'm not asking questions about Montigny is because I'm talking to the Minister for Finance.
Exactly.
That's right. Minister, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you, and we applaud you for serving this country with distinction. I'm sure you are going to finish your term. So let me say, in the past 10 years, you have served us with distinction. Thank you so much.
Very kind of you, Kule. Thank you very much for the kind words. I appreciate that too. And thank you to the viewers.
Bokosebe kwinduna itemafa umhlonishwa Neil Rackenberg lebesixoxisana naye ke elangeni lalomuhla sitekela nje indzaba letiningi indzaba kubhadala kwema suppliers tekana indzaba yabothishela le contract teachers kusingabe kungentiwa njani ukuze sinabo baqasheke uyayiteka induna nendzaba yemali lebolekwa live inhlanganweni takamhlaba ukuthi iyabhadaleka bokose akube sevikini lelitako ngekuvuma kwalomdzala wedinsuku nisale kahle kwalomuhla.
Mswatu ingozi thula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yotenza bakhe
You're watching Eswatini TV News at 10. I am Natalisa Tole. First, let's have a look at our headlining stories.